for the next 2 weeks, leading up to the air retakes, we are going to do a lot of questions that will be similar to things on the air test, whether you've already passed the air test or not. Right? We are going to do some air review, okay? Because a lot of this stuff correlates with things that we're talking about in class. Right? So today we are going to look at questions dealing with what we've been talking about. Okay, right triangles. So there's some trig in here, there's some Pythagorean theorem in here. So the first thing we're going to do, I pulled 6 questions from actual previous air tests that we're going to look at. And then there's an assignment on the back, okay, that has very similar type questions. Right? So let's just go through these 6 questions together first. So this one says, the sign company is building a sign with the dimensions shown below. Right, this side is 13. This entire side here is 10. And then the question asks, what is the area in square feet of the sign? So first, how do I find the area of a triangle? Almost.
Is it 1 over 2?
One half base times height. Yeah. So area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. Base times height is area of a rectangle. Area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So the 2 pieces of information I need are the base and the height. Do I have both of those pieces of information here?
Yeah. Or no?
Which one? Yeah.
No.
No?
Yeah. Which is the height? 5.
Alright, so, yeah, so what I'm going to end up looking at is this right triangle here. Right? This 13, okay, is not one of the 2 dimensions that I need. It's not the base or the height. Right? The 2 dimensions that I need will be this length and this length. Base and height always meet at a right angle. Okay? That's an important idea. So this 13 is not the base, right, or the height. I will need to use it, though, to find the height. So what I'm looking at is this right triangle. I want to find this side. So I can call that my H. Right?
Are we going to do the Pythagorean theorem?
Exactly. So we're going to do the Pythagorean theorem here to find the piece that we need. So what would my setup look like?
Squared equals 13 squared.
Exactly. 5 and the H are my 2 legs. So those are my A and B. And then 13 is the hypotenuse. So that's my C. They don't get charged. I don't know. Batteries must be dead. Alright, so to solve this then, square the 5 and square the 13. Now what?
You subtract 25 from both sides.
Subtract the 25 from both sides.
And then the square root of that, and then it's 12.
Perfect. Take the square root. We get that the height is 12. So now I have the information that I need to find the area. We found that the height is 12. Now what is the base of this triangle?
12.
So I get...
Wait, of all of it?
It depends on how you look at it,
Or
I
just
guess.
like
Yeah, so what are the 2 pieces that I need? The base and the height are
10 and 12.
10 and 12, right? So the entire base or height, however you want to look at it, of the triangle is 10, and then this other piece that we need is 12. So my area then is going to be 1/2 times 10 times 12. So 1/2 times 10 times 12 gets me what?
60.
60. And then they even tell us what our units should be in square feet. Okay, so questions like this are pretty common on the air test, where you need to find one extra piece of information before you find what the question is actually asking you to do. Okay, we okay with something like that? All right, so let's jump down then to number 2. Okay, this type of question has showed up all 3 years that we've had the air test. This is a super basic question. There's nothing we have to solve for. We just have to understand what it's asking. Okay? So we have this triangle here. The legs are 8, 15, and the hypotenuse is 17. And all the question asks is, what is the cosine of A? What does that mean? What is that asking me to do?
8 over 17 would be.
Yeah, you get that.
Just be so Koa, Jason of hypotenuse, finding Jason of hypotenuse.
Exactly. Right? Cosine in SOHCAHTOA we know is ha. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So if I'm labeling my sides, this is opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So the cosine of angle A is adjacent over hypotenuse. That's just 8 over 17. Okay? So if you are taking the air test, this question, I can almost guarantee you something like this is going to show up. Okay? Now, I mean, it might be a different trig function. I mean, some years it's tangent, some years it's cosine, some years it's sine. Right? But that type of question, where you just have to understand what a trig function is, will probably show up.
Oh, thanks.
What's up?
I made a video for you.
Oh boy. What? Is this a hype video or an intro video? Or
It's
a
the
fan
one
video?
that takes like all your videos as context and make you feel some sad emotion.
Okay.
It needs a little work, but it's definitely
Alright, so this is another one pulled directly off of a previous air test, and this is stuff that we've been doing. Right? So we were given this triangle, we're given that this angle is 30, this side's 44, and then the question says, what is the length of side A? What do I do?
I know. Once you figure out which side you have from that, it's a fill. Opposite hypotenuse.
Right, so with respect to this angle here, this would be the opposite side.
So wouldn't that be sine?
This would be the hypotenuse, right? So this would be sine of what?
30.
Sine of 30, sine of the angle equals A over
2 times the bottom by 44, and the other side of 44, 44 times sine 33. No. And
Exactly. So what is it? Right, so what's 44 times sine of 30?
20.
Should be exactly 22.
this is about that.
So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to do practice air questions, even if you've already passed the air test. We okay with that one? Alright. And let's move over to the other side. Okay, so this is another question like number 2. Right? We're given a triangle, and they just ask, what is the tangent of angle A? So there's no work to be done here. We just have to understand what the question's asking. I don't have to solve for anything. I just ask, what is the tangent of angle A? How do I do that?
24.
So we want to label the sides. Opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Tangent, we know, is opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of A is 24 over 10. Now on the air test, you do not have to reduce. Right? You can reduce 24 over 10, but 24 over 10 is an acceptable answer. You would get full credit on the air test for that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you reduced it correctly and got 12 over 5, that's still definitely an acceptable answer, but you don't have to. And I mean, that's just an extra step that you could mess up doing. Alright, good with that one? Alright, so now, this one is a little bit, requires a little bit more thought. Right? This is, again, another one that was pulled directly off of a previous air test. So we've got this right triangle, and they tell us that the sine of angle F is 0.53. How can I put that information on the triangle? So we know, what is sine? What does that even mean? Opposite over hypotenuse. But I just have one number. So how can I make that an opposite over a hypotenuse? No, we're not going to have to solve for any x. So I can always put a number over 1, right? That doesn't change its value. So 0.53 is the same as 0.53 over 1. So if I'm told that this is the sine, this is the opposite side over the hypotenuse then. Okay, so with respect to f, we can say that this is 0.53, and the hypotenuse is 1. Well, now the question asks me, what is the cosine of angle h? Right? Not of angle f, of angle h. So with respect to h, what do I need to find to get the cosine? Cosine is what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. So what's the adjacent side to h? Yeah, this one. And the hypotenuse? So what is the cosine of angle h? 0.53 over 1.
Is that
Yes. Sorry. Okay. So that was kind of a weird one, right? That one makes you think a little bit. Okay, but the big idea is that the sine of this angle is equal to the cosine of the other angle in our right triangle. Okay, and we discovered that by setting up this triangle. Okay. We okay with that one? So then the last one on here that was pulled directly from a previous air test follows that question very, very closely. Okay. So what we're talking about here is exactly that same picture. Right? We're saying we've got some right triangle where A and B are complements of each other. So using what we just looked at in question 5, right, what did we say had to be true? Sine of A equals sine of B, sine of A equals cosine of A, cosine of B equals sine of B, or cosine of A equals sine of B. So I mean, if we can't recognize it right off the bat, we can just assign values to this. So in a right triangle, I mean, we could say this is 3, 4, 5. Right? That's a common right triangle. So we could just list these out then: the sine of A, the sine of B, the cosine of A, and the cosine of B. So what would the sine of A have to be?
3.
4.
4 over 5. Yeah.
Because it's A.
Oh,
Opposite.
yes, opposite.
Yep. How about the cosine of it?
I know it's 3 over 5.
That would be 3 over 5. Alright, then let's do the same thing for B. So with respect to B, what is the sine of B? cosine of b? So,
Bless you.
thank you. So now that we've assigned some values to these, which of these four statements is true? I've heard three different answers.
They both can be signed because they're adjacent to the hypotenuse. Well, they're hypotenuse like they're adjacent.
Exactly.
That one adjacent is going to be one opposite.
The different one I see up there is the.
So let's look at our values. Cosine of A is 3 over 5.
Cosine A and cosine B.
And sine of B is 3 over 5.
Oh, wait.
So cosine of A and sine of B are equal to each other. Right? D would be our correct answer here. Okay. So we've only had the air test for 3 years now, so we don't have a ton of previous example problems to pull from. Right? Those 6 questions were the ones that I went through and found that were really similar to things that we've been doing. Okay? So now, our assignment then, on the back, there are 8 questions that are pretty similar to these. Okay? There are some where you have to use the Pythagorean theorem, some where you have to use trig. There are a couple where all you're doing is saying what maybe the sine or the cosine of a certain angle is. Okay? So that's our assignment for the day. And it will be graded for completion.